that I have not been able to be personally present in the chamber because I've been suffering from stomach infection for last 5 days, and I've been advised rest. Today is the first time I have come to my office chamber at my residence and opened my laptop also for the first time after 5 days. So, but I take this up. I think I will be I have the opportunity to meet the Council General and Deputy Council General in person very shortly. Before I start, I must say that the chamber had a very strong relationship with Australia. We had the privilege. Australia didn't have a office of the Council General earlier, but of late, the Australian opened a consulate in Calcutta, and ever since then, we had an opportunity to have the gracious presence of all the Council Generals. And I'm also very grateful that Mr. Boylan and the Deputy Council General have agreed to be with us this afternoon. Sir Boylan, I must say this, that Mr. Boylan is such an active person that within a month of his arrival in Calcutta, he started cheering up Calcutta Knight Riders at Eden Gardens in the IPL matches. I really don't know how many Australian players are in the team of Calcutta Knight Riders. I really don't know. I mean, I'm not such a great fan of IPL matches, but I'm sure there must be one or two. But there are other Australian players who are in the other IPL team. So thank you very much, Mr. Boylan, that you are cheering Kolkata Knight Riders, since you being the Council General of Calcutta now. And I must tell you that, ever since Mr. Boylan arrived in Calcutta, he is not only tasted the local cuisine, but even the street food. I mean, this is very, very interesting that, the Council General not only enjoys the local cuisine, but also enjoys the street food. And Bengal is known for his fishes. So I'm sure he must have tried a lot of local fishes which are uh, prepared in West Bengal. So the other most important aspect, which I thought, because I'll be short because of my not being in good health, is the Australia India Economic Cooperation Treaty. I think this has really been a game changer. I mean, this particular treaty has really changed the doing of business with Australia, and I think it has been a new, it will open a new era in times to come between the trade relations between India and Australia. I must tell you, since you are a lover of cricket, I was, I think, 10 or 11 years old, and there was a cricket match which was played in Bombay. At not at Bombay, but there were not Wankhede Stadium at that time. There was CCI Club. My great uncle was very fond of cricket, and in the evening he said he used to call me NG, and he said, "Look, you must have dinner with me." And I've invited few Australian cricketers at my home for dinner. Uh, I think there were 7 or 8 Australian cricketers, very strong build. And what I saw was I was really astonished by their discipline. I mean, they were only eating, I would say that, this chicken, uh, what do you call that? Tandoori chicken. I mean, it was, those days I did not know much about non-vegetarian food, but they only had salad and tandoori chicken. They had no crabs. I mean, I asked them that, why are you not trying other sweet items and, little bit of roti and sabji? He said, no, we have to be fit. We have to play tomorrow. So we need to have this diet of only salad and tandoori chicken. I was really amazed by their discipline. I mean, being a discipline, and this is what has made Australia such a strong country as far as the sports are concerned. I mean, you are good in so many sports. I mean, you back so many materials. So apart from being one of the most beautiful countries, you are also one of the most disciplined country also. Sir, the effect of the Operation TT which we had. Now, what is the effect of that? That nearly 96% of the Indian goods, 96% of the Indian goods are now enter Australia without any tariffs. So this is a great achievement. 93% of the goods enter Australia without any tariffs. And it is expected by 2000 that there will be a further rise. Maybe a time will come that more than 99%, or maybe 100% of the goods will go tariff free. And India is now exporting over 700 items to Australia. This is again a very interesting figure. And our exports have gone up to the extent of 335 million in the first 10 months of 2023-24, including what we are exporting is the smartphones. I mean, and the export of the smartphones is to the extent of 65 million US dollars. Similarly, India's export to Australia has also grown by 14% on year-to-year basis. Exports of engineering goods to Australia also has risen by 24%. I mean, this is something which is such a tremendous growth after this agreement was entered into, really. And similarly, agricultural exports from Australia, because we are so strong in agriculture, to India has grown up by 50%. And most of the industrial exports of Australia to India also grew by almost 30% since the implementation of the agreement. So I think it's a new chapter in the history of India and Australia. And I'm sure, being the lover of food and being the lover of food and being the lover of fruits, I will enjoy more and more items coming from Australia, so that I'm satisfied. I'm sure this is going to happen. Sir, another important point is which we feel is very important is is the coal, because the coal is, we are importing such a large amount of coal from your country. And West Bengal is the third largest producer of coal in India. In fact, as far as the mining is concerned, we have the largest coal mine in the world in West Bengal, and we are the third largest mineral exporters in India. So West Bengal is very rich as far as the mineral is concerned. It is very rich as far as the coal is concerned, and this state has many industries which needs coal. Steel industry needs coal. A lot of other industries need coal. So I think this will be one area where we will be needing your cooperation as far as the imports of coal are concerned, and how best we can do business with your country so that we can import coal cheaply at a reasonable price and with a certainty and with a good quality. I think this is one area which we are very. Sir, I had an opportunity to visit Australia, and I had an opportunity to visit Bond University. And one of my friend, you'll be surprised to note, he went to study in Bond University. He never came back to India, and he has now become a lecturer in Bond University. He liked Australia so much that he started that, I'm not going to come back to India. I have fallen in love with Bond University, and today he is a lecturer in Bond University. So in education, you are also very strong. In tourism, you are very strong. In environment, you are very strong. I mean, it's one country which any person would love to visit your country. Sir, I think we are one chamber which has started developing close cooperation with different countries. We have developed our close cooperation with African countries because we feel that the 21st century not only belongs to India, not only belongs to Africa, it also belongs to Australia. So I think, and that is the reason that we have established an African desk in our chamber. We also feel that we need to have very strong relationship with our neighbor Bangladesh. That is why we made a delegation to Bangladesh, and shortly we will be having a Bangladesh desk at Calcutta. And in Bangladesh Chambers of Commerce, we will have an Indian desk in Bangladesh. So, in the same value, we would also like if we can also have some partnership with you, where we can have open an Australian desk, because that is very important. So that people who wants to do business with Australia, we have a desk here. And similarly, if any organization you feel can have a desk in your country, then we will like to have our chambers desk in their country, so that we can keep our people, keep our members in West Bengal in touch with Australia of the whatever needs they have, whatever things they want to import, whatever things they want to export. I think one-to-one contact would be very important so that they can be kept in touch with other persons who are doing business in different fields in Australia. So I think if we want to develop close economic relationship, I think if you can help us in establishing Australian desk in Bharat Chamber of Commerce, and we would also like a desk to be open in Australia. We will also be very happy if a state delegation could be arranged between members of the Bharat Chamber of Commerce with in Australia, and if a trade delegation you could ask from Australia to visit West Bengal. I think this will be a win-win situation for us, and I will seek your cooperation and guidance in that regard. And when I get little well, I will personally call upon you at your office and take these issues forward. Because I feel very strongly about it. Sir, with these words, I would now request you to give your views to our chamber as to how you intend to develop closer relationship, business relationship, cultural relationship, friendly relationship. I can't say more, and also to have more and more import of fruits from Australia, which will make me more cheerful and happy. Thank you very much, Mr. Boylan, for being with us this evening.
Thank you so much for those kind words, and thank you for having me. I often wonder if when I give remarks like this, I'm going to need to start by giving a good plug for what a wonderful place Australia is, what a wonderful partner it is, and how many wonderful things there are to see and do in Australia. But you've done all of that for me. So thank you very much. I think I've managed to cut some time down in my remarks. Look, it's fitting that so many of my first events and meetings as Consul General have been with or about business. I've been here for 2 months, and that has been the overwhelming focus of what I'm doing. It's my primary mission for this role to increase two-way trade and investment between India and Australia and drive that agenda specifically here in West Bengal and broadly across the east and northeast. That's why I'm here tonight. So many of you might know that the Australia-India relationship was updated to a comprehensive strategic partnership in June 2020. Our partnership is based on mutual understanding, friendship, and on a shared vision of a peaceful, stable, and prosperous Indo-Pacific region. We're committed to collaborating on science and technology, maritime cooperation, trade and investment, defence ties, education, agriculture, and tourism. And we're doing a lot together already. In the financial year 22 to 23, India was Australia's 5th largest export market, and our total two-way trade came in at 45 billion Australian dollars. Our total exports to India came through at 32.4 billion, and imports from India totaled 12.6. At the end of 2022, Australia's stock of investment in India was 17.6 billion, while India's total investment in Australia was 34.5 billion. So you can see we are coming off a reasonably strong base, but obviously there's a lot more that we can do and room for expansion. And key to that, I think, is the fact that Australia and India have complementary economies. So harnessing that complementarity is going to be to our mutual economic interest and to our benefit. We can be a part of each other's growth stories, and I'm really excited to be here to be able to be a part of that and about expanding that element of our relationship. So Australia and India trade is something that's actually very close to my heart. The end of December 2023 marked the first anniversary of the Australia-India Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement, so well flagged right there behind me, or ECTA. ECTA, I understand, is a word that sounds a little like the word for unity in Hindi. And I think that's about as good as a word as any to describe the flourishing Australia-India ties, underpinned by what is a dramatic growth in our trade and business relationship. So why is it close to my heart? I've worked as an Australian diplomat for a decade. Before that, I was a lawyer. My work has involved negotiating a lot of free trade agreements. I've just finished 3 years in New Delhi, where I worked as economic counsellor at the Australian High Commission. So that means that having been in Delhi and now being in Kolkata, this will be the first time that I have been fortunate enough to be living in a country immediately after a trade agreement with Australia entered into force. So I'm really seeing what it looks like when a trade agreement comes to life. I've seen that it has a transformative impact on our trading relationship. So 2 weeks ago, for example, I spent a few hours learning to cook Australian lamb with a group of very talented chefs here. And lamb benefits from a tariff cut under the ECTA agreement. So I now really do feel as if I've seen our trade agreement move from paper to plate, if you like. So that was a great experience for me, and I hope that all of you are going to get to try some Australian lamb soon. This agreement is delivering for both of our countries. This is not a one-sided deal. Our two-way goods trade has grown by nearly 60% over the last 5 years, and ECTA is making sure that it keeps growing. India is now Australia's 4th largest export destination. ECTA provides a framework for long-term growth in our trade. As you mentioned, sir, 96% of Indian goods are now entering Australia completely tariff-free, and that will, again, as you noted, rise to 100% by 2026. 85% of our goods enter India without tariffs, which will rise to 90% in the coming years. India's companies have noticed these offerings and they're profiting. Of all Indian goods eligible for the tariff cuts under ECTA, 77% are entering Australia under the new tariff regime. So what sectors specifically are actually benefiting in India? ECTA is delivering real benefits to the agriculture sector here, and that matters obviously across the country, but also deeply here in West Bengal. Overall, Indian exports of agricultural products to Australia are up by 15%, and that's sort of led by upticks in roasted cereals, bread, pastry and biscuits, and frozen vegetables. We are also enjoying more Indian rice, grains and fresh vegetables and fruit. We're drinking more coffee, and much to the pleasure of my mother and my family, Australians can now buy a lot more of India's famous sweets. ECTA is providing us with a solid base to take advantage of the complementarities in our agriculture sector to help both of us achieve our economic ambitions. And we're partnering to cooperate beyond the trade, but working together on issues like horticulture, wine, dairy, cotton, and wool. So in a country with an enormous textiles sector, including here, I'd also note that India's textiles sector is benefiting from this deal, where the tariff on textiles to coming into Australia went down to 0 when the deal entered into force. So apparel imports have gone up 9%, which means we are wearing more textiles made in India. And Australian businesses and consumers are obviously getting a lot of benefit out of this too. So in the first 10 months of ECTA entering into force, Aussies saved around 830 crore in duties paid on Indian imports of linen, auto parts, clothes, and more. Our trade with India supports nearly 120,000 jobs in Australia, so this is something that's very important to our economy. We're also both big services markets. On ECTA's connecting professional bodies between our two countries to work together on standards recognition and licensing. That's already in the works for things like dentistry, engineering, nursing, pharmacy, and more. So I guess when I referred to economic complementarities at the beginning of my remarks, what I mean really simply is that India has what Australia needs and Australia has what India needs. And I think a really good example is critical minerals. We have the critical minerals that India needs to fuel the transition to net zero and hit its ambitious export targets. That has flow-on important benefits for the global need to address climate change and reduce emissions. That ambition is shared by both our governments. We also think that we can help India harness its demographic dividend. Like India, Australia has many high-quality universities. In fact, education is our second highest export to India after coal. Our education offerings can add on to those that are already offered in India, which will help India to educate the roughly 70 million young Indians looking for a tertiary qualification by 2030. I'm also pleased to note that our mutual recognition of qualifications agreement, as well as 2 Australian universities opening campuses in India, is further deepening our cooperation in the education space. India also has the skilled workforce that can take two-way investment between our countries and transform it into the manufacturing supply chains of the future. So economically, I think our 2 countries are a perfect fit, but there's never an end point in a bilateral relationship. And Sir, you referenced cricket, so I want to talk about the second innings. The next step to realizing our full potential lies in the signing of a comprehensive economic cooperation agreement that goes beyond what we have agreed in VIECTA. We're negotiating that right now. So that agreement we call the CECA. CECA can boost the supply chains for critical minerals that I referred to that India needs, this time for manufacturing solar panels, wind turbines, and electric vehicles. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman recently said that India was the second most sought after manufacturing destination in the world. With Australia's critical minerals, we think there's no reason why it can't be the first. CECA can also offer an opportunity to expand our cooperation on agriculture. That's important because we know that roughly 700 million Indian jobs depend on or are related to the agriculture sector. We've got shared goals in agriculture, making it sustainable and ensuring food security. We've been collaborating on those issues for decades, including Australian technology being deployed to combat animal diseases and to lower emissions of fertilizer in India. Our government agencies are working together on sustainable water management and finding more drought-resilient crops. I did a very corny welcome video on my Twitter, or X, I should say now, the other day, talking about all the wonderful things that we do together. And a part of it, I was sitting in front of a bridge, and I referred to what we call the most tangible aspect of our bilateral relationship, which is the living bridge or the human bridge, our people-to-people links, the diaspora. By deepening our trade relationship, we'll create more demand for direct flights between our countries, which will expand our people-to-people links and create opportunities for investment that, again, will enrich us both. I think it's really important here in this room to note that when we talk about increasing trade and investment at the government level, there tends to be a focus directed specifically at big business. And it's true, that's a part of it. But there's so much space for growth, I think, and for connections between our medium and small enterprises. And we need to tap that, and we need to figure out what those businesses can do together. So trade is not always going to be about the big end of town. It's about relationships, and it's about coming together to forge partnerships. MSMEs thrive on relationships. They're nimble, they're adaptable, and they're good at finding new opportunities. They're also an incredibly important part of our bilateral relationship because very often in two-way trade for us, they involve members of the proud Indian diaspora in Australia. So I'm here to help businesses large and small connect with Australia, find partners and find opportunities. I want to see more deals happen. So my final message to you tonight, and I hope that we'll all be seeing a lot of each other, but you'll be hearing this a lot from me over the next 3 years, is a pretty simple message, which is let's get down to business. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your insightful and encouraging remarks, Ms. Boylan. And it's nice to know, I mean, that you are here with renewed vigor for business cooperation or building a business bridge between Australia and India in general, and of course, this part of the region of India in particular. I now would like to open the house for questions if you have, and please, while asking questions, please be brief. Could you give your name, the sector that you are into, and ask your brief question, please. Thank
Sir,
you.
one,
So, yeah, yeah,
So I'm
first, yeah.
I am Professor S.K. De, Vice Chancellor Swami Vivekananda University. So you have rightly pointed out that is the education is the one of the sector which have a long-standing cooperation with India and Australia. Already two universities, Daikin University and Wollongong University, I think, already established their campus at Gujarat, and North City University will, I think, set up their campus at Bangalore. I think. They will- Now, one of the successful model for academic collaboration, it has been found that it is your capacity building in research. Because already Monash University, Australia, they have undertaken one joint PhD program with your IIT Bombay. Now, joint collaboration in PhD program, that is jointly PhD work. If you undertake between the two universities, I think it will be to the academic collaborations, and it has been found that it is one of the successful model. Side by side, there is also Australian, Indian, your strategic research fund is there. Also recently, we have also got a University Grants Commission. They have set up your academic bank of credits. Formerly, there was some problem regarding the transfer of credit between Australian and Indian universities. So there is no such problem like this now. So I think in research areas, that is joint PhD program between Australian and Indian universities can be further elaborated. I think in this regard, if your help in this regard, it will be highly appreciated, because we can extend this, because it has been found that it is one of the successful model in building the academic relationship between the two countries. Another area is that is the agriculture, you have already pointed out. Another is your sports medicine, because in Australia, it is very much developed, sports medicine. I think we can open sports medicine in our universities. This is one of the area. I think it will be area where we can undertake collaborations. So thank you very much.
Thank you. So should we take the questions together?
I'm
And then
happy.
I think he
Okay.
can answer
He can-
both of us because we
Okay.
belong to the same university.
Okay.
I'm the Chief Executive Director, Academic of this university, Swami Vivekananda University. It's lovely to be here because I went to Australia more than 25 times.
Wow.
Yeah, on fellowship and on many other grants. I taught there also at Monash and University of New South Wales
Mhm.
for a particular semester. So, and moreover, in our university, we have established the Center for Australian Studies.
Mhm.
Kevin very rightly knows all about this
Mhm.
because he had been to our university.
Good.
And we have established this center as a sister concern for the Indian Association for the Study of Australia Eastern Region. I'm the secretary of that. And we have been working very closely with the Australian universities, Monash University, University of New South Wales, University of Wollongong. We have also a very close collaboration on many different research areas with all these universities. So therefore, we have been working on this for a long time, since 2006. We have been doing this, and after I joined this university, I carried it on. And therefore, I was just looking at the website of DFAT, and there I particularly identified the developing issues or the development issues. And that's a long list of different priority areas. And I identified, as far as the demands of our university, 4 distinctive areas. Number 1, agriculture, as it has been very wonderfully discussed here. Now, it is agriculture and food security. And we actually identified the climate resilient agriculture and the food security. And that is what we are doing also in our university. And at the same time, we identified another very important priority areas, that is climate change. That also shows the resilience the adaptive capacity, and the crisis, the different, aspects of the problems related to this. Now, there are many distinctive areas and we can send proposals, but I am particularly interested in Disability Inclusive Development Program. And the program is called Australia's Development for All, 2015-2020, and it is still current, it's still going on. And it is a strategy for strengthening disability inclusive development in Australia's aid program. So can we be part of this particular aid program? Can we tie up with this? Because we have certain very distinctive priority areas like agriculture, climate resilient agriculture. At the same time, there is climate change, then the gender issues.
Yeah.
All of these are very important. So how we can go for partnerships and collaborations in terms of, as our Honorable Vice Chancellor has already pointed out, the research areas we have to identify, and
Yeah.
we actually don't know where to apply and how to apply.
Yes, please.
Well, usually, sir, I'd say you can find all that and so much more at dfat.gov.au. But I'm glad that you mentioned the AISRF, the Strategic Research Fund. That is a really good opportunity. Another one is the Australia-India Cyber and Critical Technology Policy Grants Round, which is also available. So I would strongly encourage people to apply. In fact, that just opened for applications, I think. So people should look into that. Look, on joint PhDs, like working together on education outcomes is always a terrific idea. Like we can learn from each other. I'm looking forward immensely to seeing what the curriculum is at the Australian Studies Centre. I think it'll be fascinating to look at how one's own country is studied by another, and you rarely get an opportunity to do that. So that would be good. On the development issues that you've raised, I'm not totally clear about it. I think what I would say is that addressing disability issues is a tenet of Australia's development assistance program. India is not a country with which we have a bilateral development assistance program. India is a country with which we would work in partnership to deliver outcomes on these things. So, for example, I mean, you've mentioned agriculture, food security, climate resilience. We do cooperate with India in those spaces here, per some of the things that I have mentioned. Marine ecology as well is an area where we cooperate. Climate change, yes, there's a lot happening in that space. So additional to the critical minerals part that I mentioned, which is, of course, has both commercial outcomes and policy. There's also government-to-government agreements on ultra low-cost solar, on hydrogen. So we are doing a lot together in those spaces. To the extent that there's development assistance on things like ag or disability issues here, it would not be development assistance. It'd be small community level grants. It's, as I said, India is a country with which we would partner on outcomes here.
Thank you, Excellency. Can we have Mr. Shah here? Mic for him, please.
Hello, good evening. We are a manufacturing company working in the engineering space, and we are into catering into basic sectors of railways, even sectors of mining, as well as agriculture. So on the agriculture front, we are basically working with a few companies in Australia currently. We manufacture agricultural implements, but we see that the agricultural produce overall in Australia is very little. It is, I think 1.5% of the land in Australia is just agriculture land. The rest is probably developed land or land for the cattle feed. So correct me if I'm wrong. So there we see a very limited scope of kind of business with Australia when it comes to this space. On the other hand, railways, that is another sector which we are working around. So we don't see a very big railway network in Australia. Although we've not explored it much, this is something which we want to. So if we can get a insight about what plans does Australia have in kind of expanding their railway network, this is number two. And then we are also working with some Australian companies currently who are looking at manufacturing partners for GET parts, that is ground engaging tools, for basically to cater to the mining industry. So this is all core manufacturing on the engineering space, which I am talking about. So over there, we are currently working with a couple of technology partners who have kind of presence in India and are looking for manufacturing partners. So on that front, if we can get some kind of insight from your end.
Sure, thank you very much. To start with the point on agriculture and production, I mean, it's when you compare the scale of anything that happens in India with the scale on which it happens in Australia, obviously the numbers stack up quite differently. And yield in terms of acreage, for example, Australia is an enormous country, but a lot of the land in the center is, and my family are wool growers, we're sheep farmers, and you could drive for quite a while and not see a single sheep, but they're there. So I think that's part of it there, but definitely there are ways that we can work together on yield. Like, I mean, India has one of the world's largest dairy herds, so I'm sure there are things that we could learn and vice versa on that. Really glad to hear that you're doing a lot of work in the METS sector and including on equipment. That obviously is a sector for us in this region that's of great interest, and we have some Australian companies operating here in it. Manufacturing equipment and moving it to Australia, I don't know if your comment about the size of the agriculture industry meant that you weren't able to export enough of the equipment for it to be affordable. But all of that equipment would now, I imagine, I know would be able to enter Australia with zero tariffs attached to it. So with luck, that will have improved the profitability of it. Railways, carts and carriages. I did not know this until I moved to India 3 years ago, that railway carts and carriages were one of India's larger goods exports to Australia. And when I first rode the metro in Delhi on my second week living in India, I fully understood why. They are top-notch, world-class. Do I know where our governments are going with expanding our railway network? That is not something that I am aware of, but I'd be very happy to look into it and see if I can come back to you on it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Arindam Mukherjee.
His Excellency, thank you very much for participating to this program. Myself, Arindam Mukherjee, I'm director of a Kolkata-based think tank called Institute of Social and Cultural Studies. My question is, both the countries, India and Australia, are part of IURA. So blue economy can be a very important role for proper SDG goal. So I want to know your comments about the future plan of how we can use the blue economy.
Sorry. Look, I think that this is obviously an area where there's great scope for cooperation amongst a lot of countries, and a lot of our, the future of many businesses depends on this, and of our, proper management of it and ensuring that we are making the most of the opportunities that we have. I've mentioned briefly that we're cooperating with India on some marine and maritime issues. I would have to come back to you on specifically what those initiatives are. The most, I believe that Ministers Wong and Jaishankar made an announcement on a collaborative coastal project at the Indian Ocean Conference, but sir, I'd have to check and come back to you. The SDGs, obviously, we have to work to achieve those. Where we are behind, we all need to do more. But I'd be really happy maybe to come by your think tank and discuss the blue economy in more detail. I'd be very, very happy to hear your ideas for what more could be done.
Thank you. Mr. Bose.
Very good evening, Your Excellency, and welcome to Kolkata. I am Billy Bose, happen to be committee member of Bharat Chamber of Commerce. Sir, West Bengal may soon have its own pharmaceutical hub modeled on the same lines as the software technology parks. Currently, about 90% of the state's drug makers are MSMEs. So what plans does the Australian government have that would benefit the industry, especially in pharmaceuticals? Pharmaceutical industry.
Pharmaceutical.
Thank you, I'm learning. Look, I mean, at the end of the day, of course, plans for benefiting India's pharmaceutical industry would be driven by India. Certainly, though, we have interest in and collaboration with India in this space, including driven by both of our governments. So we are very aware, for example, that Prime Minister Modi wants to see India become the pharmacy of the world. We all know, how tremendously valuable India's work in that sector was to the entire world during the COVID-19 pandemic with vaccine diplomacy, for example. It really, it saved thousands of lives. It brought to the attention of the world India's incredibly impressive credentials in the pharmaceutical space. I actually spent part of yesterday talking about the Cowen app, which for me, I found really, really impressive when I was here living in Delhi through the Delta wave. India obviously is a powerhouse for manufacturing pharmaceuticals as well. I think a lot of generics that are sold in Australia come from India. To that end, in the ECTA, I believe it is in an annex to Chapter 7 of the ECTA, there are provisions on cooperation in the pharmaceuticals industry, specifically cooperation between regulatory and standard setting bodies like the Therapeutic Goods Organization in Australia. It's obviously a complicated and highly regulated industry, but there are agreed binding provisions between our governments on cooperation, which is terrific. And I think we'll continue to see that expand.
Yes, two questions. One, yes,
Good evening, Your Excellency. The lithium and cobalt now appears to be the new petroleum in the next century. Of course, now technology moves, we can't predict century, but at least few decades. And you're sitting on a wealth of that mines, of your natural resource. And you must be aware that the current Indian government has a focus to convert from their petroleum vehicles to e-vehicles. So how do you see Indo-Australian collaboration in developing these e-vehicles for the world?
So I'm smiling because I'm so glad you asked that question. This is one of my favorite things. Has to be one of the most prospective areas of cooperation between our two countries. I mean, yes, Australia has the lithium and cobalt that is needed to build the batteries, to go into the EVs. The ambition here for EV manufacture is enormous. The scale of it is just enormous. So for battery manufacture in general, but also those EV plans. Look, I think where we are is basically, as I said, there's a perfect fit here, right? So we have these minerals. Australia is not at present working to manufacture a lot of EVs or batteries ourselves. India has an enormous manufacturing scale. So that is a very, very good fit. We're also, like, proximity is our friend in this as well, geographic proximity. So shipping ores, for example, from Australia to India is a lot shorter than distances for India from some other countries in South America, for example, that also have deposits of these minerals. Just so I get to kind of hammer this point home as often as I possibly can, we actually have an electric auto rickshaw at the Consul General that with a pink kangaroo on it that we call Auto Roo. I had planned to arrive here tonight, but then prior to coming here, I was at the war cemetery preparing for Anzac Day, and I thought going from the cemetery in a suit in an auto might mean that I would arrive here perhaps looking like I'd been in the rain. But I am very excited by that question, and I'm very excited by where that takes our countries, because I really do believe that that is the future. That is a key part of the future of this bilateral relationship as we transition and work towards net zero.
Thank you. Next, please.
Hi, sir. So this is Ayushi, and I'm an alumna of UNSW, and now I serve as South Asia representative for UNSW. Having been born and raised in Calcutta, Sydney is like my second home. So my question is regarding the education sector. While the visa rejections are occurring, the positive aspect is that we are attracting the highest quality and the most sincere students from India. Additionally, unlike Canada and the UK, where a significant portion of the individuals are primarily interested in just migration, the Indian demographic is distinct in its focused and education sector. So how do you envision the educational relationship between India and Australia evolving over the next 5 years, given the substantial changes in the application process?
Well, as a rep for UNSW, I suspect you've got pretty good answers to those questions too. Look, I mean, the first thing I'd say about transformation in that sector and next steps would be, I mean, we've all seen, online education, for example, go through the roof. There are lots of different kinds of partnerships, as you gentlemen have flagged. I think probably a really exciting and prospective one is seeing the opening up of Deakin and Wollongong campuses in India. There have been changes to Indian government policy that facilitates that. I think it's terrific. It means that more people will be able to have an education built on that curriculum we have in Australia that builds on the world-class Australian education systems, and they'll be able to do it right here in India. I think that's terrific. As to changes in the application process, are you talking about visas or university exchange? Sorry, are you talking about the migration strategy?
No, sir. So I'm just saying, along with the application process, even the migration strategy has changed. So the group of 8 universities are only giving the offer letter after doing the complete thorough GTE check of the students, which was not done earlier, at least before 2019. So we are having better quality of Indian students and students who are actually interested to study rather than migration, just being a point of view, because that was the kind of crowd we were finding in Canada. But Australia is not doing the same. So there was 60% of visa rejections, but also they were not for the good quality of students. So only the best people are coming from India. So it's just.
I can also add that from this part of the country, actually, I'm sure you would be aware, Australia is a very, preferred place to go for higher education. So in that context, this becomes very meaningful question. So, yeah.
Look, I appreciate that observation about the student cohort that's coming to Australia. I'm not sure whether that was just an observation or whether you were seeking a response to it. I mean, what I would say on the migration strategy is that, as it sounds like with your job, you would well know that the strategy is about strengthening the quality and integrity of the system and ensuring that international students have a really positive experience while they're in Australia. I mean, fundamentally, that's what this is about. Like, we warmly welcome Indian students to Australia. We are so lucky to have so many Indians wanting to come and study in Australia. And among other things, this strategy will do things like close loopholes that make it possible for some people to be exploited when they go and study through, some labor practices or institutions. So Yeah, I mean, is that sort of what you're looking for there?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm hoping very soon
Have
one of
a,
the
you have a good point. Why not have a word with His Excellency in person after this thing, so that all your things are clarified or your message is adequately sent. Yeah. You have any other question?
No, so I was just hoping like within coming few years, there is also a Geo8 campus in India now.
Yes, please. Mike, that side. Is there?
Yeah, hello. Sorry. Lot of things about educations and all
Say
happened.
your
We
sector.
have, yeah, I'm Ajay Tarve. I'm from Leather Industries, and I'm now representing here Indian Leather Product Association, ILPA, together with my colleague Mr. Gulati is here, past president. I am also the past president, and our executive director, Arpita. So, sir, I just wanted to put forward before you that Calcutta, and especially place around Calcutta, is very important area for manufacture of leather goods. And we have the largest leather goods complex, which is Asia's largest complex, and where we have tanneries, we have leather goods, and your predecessors, Ms. Rowan, also visited that area on our request, and we would also approach your office to visit that area and see what we are producing, visit some of the factories, and only thing what we are finding is after the ACTA also we are not finding much progress in the export volume to Australia from India, and what we observe is that many of the business associations are not having knowledge about the products in this area, although the exporters are approaching there, visiting the fair, including we also participated in the fair. But this is what we found, that they're not too much aware. So maybe we can approach your association, your office also, to give us some connections to the similar associations in your country and promote our export to your country. And definitely we will approach you to have a look at this great area. Thank you, sir.
Sure, let's definitely talk, and I'd love to do a visit. One of the most interesting visits anywhere I've ever done in my life was to a small town in Guatemala that only sold leather cowboy boots. So, you know, I look forward to seeing what Calcutta's answer to that is. But yeah, very happy to chat about how we might build trade in that sector. Thanks.
You can, you can be also be in touch with your association, in touch with the chamber secretariat, because as things progress in our efforts to scale up our relationships with them to promote businesses between the two countries, perhaps there would be an opportunity at the industry level to actually participate more actively, to engage more of Australians and create awareness about our goods over there, to seek more businesses using our products. Yeah. Yeah.
Also approach through your association or through your chamber also on this project.
Most welcome. The CG has one more observation to make.
So your remark reminded me that I needed to say this to everybody in the room, which is, if you have an interest in doing more business with Australia, whether it's exports, services, if you think that there is more our governments can do together, please make a submission to the Department of Foreign Affairs. You can do that via our website, which is dfat.gov.au. We have a submissions portal that is open for the India-Australia trade agreement. We take submissions from people in Australia and in India. We want your ideas. We'd love to hear what more we could do. And the other thing you of course can do to assist with that is please to get out and promote the Australia relationship with your contacts and your colleagues, and promote what more we might do with a broader and more expansive trade agreement, because there is so much and we are all going to need to work together to tap that potential. Thanks.
Thank you. This was very important. If there are no questions, can we? Okay.
May I ask one question?
Yes, President. Sorry.
I know, but is there any possibility to have long-term visas for visiting Australia?
That is a portfolio matter for the Department of Home Affairs.
But you can always send a recommendation.
You can always make a submission, sir. dfat.gov.au.
Okay.
No, sir, with the context, President, of the Shenzhen area opening up for long-term visas for deserving Indians, I think your point is very valid, and I'm sure it will be considered positively using the good offices of Mr. Boylan.
I'm saying this because of the agreement which we have entered into, and that's why so much of business is happening.
And yes, so somebody who's visiting more often. Yeah, he's mentioning about having a 5-year visa also. Okay, so yes, of course, that can always be worked. Thank you for raising this point, President. So let's coming to an end, Mr. Boylan, Mr. Goh, members of the chamber, guests and friends. At the end of this special session on Australia-India Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement, which very interestingly His Excellency called Ekta and gave the Hindi connotation to it. It is indeed my pleasure and duty to propose a hearty vote of thanks to our guest in chief, Mr. Hugh Boylan, Consul General of Australia in Kolkata, for sparing some of his valuable time to address the members of our chamber. I would also like to express my sincere thanks to Mr. Kevin Goh, Deputy Consul General of Australia in Kolkata, for his presence at the session today. Friends, it must not be forgotten that at the beginning of our trade relations in the 18th century, all trade to and from New South Wales was controlled and was happening through our very own Kolkata, although at that time under British East India Company. It is a matter of great pride that India and Australia share a long-standing relationship of more than 230 years. And as a testimony to that, they have charted a whole new trajectory of growth in bilateral trade. I'm confident that in the coming years, the overall relationship between Australia and India, West Bengal in particular, will continue to grow and assume great prominence in global affairs. My thanks are also due to the representatives of the media for their presence at the session. With these words, I now request all of you to join me in carrying a hearty vote of thanks to Mr. Hugh Boylan, Consul General of Australia in Kolkata, with appreciative acclamation. Thank you.
So we have a memento for Mr. Boylan. I would request you to present the memento to him. We have one more, sir. We have a memento for Mr. Kevin Goh. I would request our Mr. Tatia to present this memento, please. Chairman of the Global Trade Subcommittee. With this, we conclude today's special session. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and please join us for high tea.